This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
That's the worst way to start. I just drank a little bit of water and went down the wrong side of my throat. Excuse me, everybody. Welcome to the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news happening surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. It's episode 232 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. You can follow Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86. And if you want to listen to the podcast, you can do that on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. But if you prefer to be a part of the chat and the conversation, you're doing that right here on YouTube. You can do it on X as well, but YouTube is probably best. There's super thanks, super stickers, all of that fun stuff to be a part of. Appreciate everybody joining in the room, everyone piling in. So much to talk about. Everyone has streamed today. So I don't know if I'm the last to stream, but we had to get on here today. Big news in the Mets world. And here to talk about it with me is a good friend to the Subway to Shea podcast, Keith Diaz, Shea and Sons creator, also appears on Empire State of Baseball, covering the Mets there. You can follow him at Kicking It with Keith. And this is a Subway to Shea and Sons collaboration. It's always fun to do these with you, my friend. How you been?
What's up, bud? I'm good. How are you?
Besides just choking on water 30 seconds before getting on the air, everything is fine and everything is good, man. What a way to start. But appreciate you for being a part of the show. The Mets got Bo. How about that?
Oh, man. Shocker. Honestly, that was, throughout this whole process, you're kind of looking at guys who fit, and never, not once did we see that as a possibility. But they always said that they wanted a right-handed bat, but it just never came across as that would be the right-handed bat. And lo and behold, Steve Cohen pivoted quite quickly, I think less than 24 hours after the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes to Bo Bichette. And he is going to be a New York Met. And I just think it just brings a brand new dynamic to the team that's really exciting.
Yeah, I was completely shocked when we signed Bo, because right after trading for Marcus Semien, I thought that took us out of the running for a guy like Bo Bichette. I thought probably he would be best at second base. They played him at second base during the World Series when he came back from his injury. And once they traded for Semien, I was like, yeah, this is probably not going to happen with Bo Bichette. But, lo and behold, you miss out on Kyle Tucker and things just change. And I think the thing I like about this is that the way they pivot, because today's show was about to be about Kyle Tucker. We're all going to be depressed and how the Mets are going to pivot, how they're going to change. And it's fresh and nice to see this organization, this front office pivot so quickly. And it's not like, oh man, we got to get someone on the same position. They're going to get whoever is the best available player. It's like in a draft, right? You miss out on somebody, but you're still going to take whoever is at the best possible position and the best possible player that's out there. And that's what they did in Bo Bichette. You mentioned it. That's the right-handed bat that they needed. They were so lefty. If they would have got Kyle Tucker, he's left-handed. Cody Bellinger, he's left-handed. Bringing in not only Bo Bichette, but Marcus Semien helps balance out the lineup. Obviously Jorge Polanco. I don't know. I don't remember if Polanco is
He's a switch hitter.
He is a switch hitter. Look at that. You got two switch hitters in him, Francisco Lindor. Obviously Beatty's a lefty. Juan Soto's a lefty. Nice balance in the lineup so far with this team. And I know I have a feeling they're not done yet. They still need an outfielder. We'll get into that a little shortly, but I want to get into the contract particulars with you. Will Salmon broke it early, and Will Salmon's on a heater this offseason. This is the offseason of Will Salmon.
Yep. I feel like for some reason, he's just been on this, I wouldn't say for some reason, for obvious reasons. He's just been on this rise that it for a while was just Met news, but now he's breaking news for other teams, and he's kind of first to a lot of stuff and big stuff too. And, you start seeing his, Jeff Passan, say Will Salmon was first to this. That's how Will Salmon is making legitimate headways in this industry. So shout out to him. He's actually done work with all of our platforms.
Yes.
Will Salmon is one of the more friendlier connections in the industry. So we have nothing but absolute respect. I call him my GOAT. He's my guy. He knows like I tease him a lot with that, but he's such a he's actually a really nice dude too. It's really nice, refreshing. But to the Bo stuff, I was thinking all day about this, and I want to throw this your way before we get into the contract details. At one point in this offseason, we were having discussions because news broke that the Mets were interested in trading for a guy like Ketel Marte, and we were wondering where we were going to play him. And it was probably always on the back burner to have some sort of makeshift infield, or some guy transitioning to third from second, even from back then. And they do it today, striking and putting pen to paper with the Bo Bichette deal, because Bo Bichette, all you heard with whatever team, he was going to end up being rumored to, was that he was going to come off shortstop and he was going to probably transition to second base. And what do we see today is that he transitions to third base as he heads to begin his chapter with the Mets. It's something that we didn't see, but maybe we didn't see because we had the wrong lenses on, because a few months ago, or you could say like a month and a half ago, we had a different set of lenses on, that it was like possible that the Mets would be getting Ketel Marte, and maybe it would be Simeon moving over, yada, yada, yada. So they've been in this very interesting bubble of just making sure that the versatility of whatever player that walks through the doors can be utilized, so everyone is in a position that they can produce. And it seems that way. And to your point, lastly, getting the best player available seems like a very true sentiment towards David Stearns, especially since we hear that a lot when he's drafting players. And the Mets have done really good with their drafts of late. And, we're going to see a lot of that very soon when these players do come up. But getting the best player available seems like an organizational mantra. And I think it's also applying to the offseason as well.
Yeah, because everyone keeps talking about run prevention.
Yeah.
And, that's just not on defense, right? I even learned that at this offseason. I'll be honest. I was like, oh, yeah, defense. We're going to get, good up the middle, which they did, right? Having Simeon and Lindor right next to each other up the middle, that's going to help. We'll see what they do at center field, if they do anything. But that also counts for pitching, will help when it comes to run prevention. So we'll see what they do with the pitching staff and the bullpen. But, having Bo Bichette, now play third base, going from shortstop, I think of Alex Rodriguez having to move over from short to third, and how that transition kind of really worked for him. That I hope, Bo's so young that I hope that kind of transitions for him. And I don't know if you saw on X earlier today, who was it that posted? I'm trying to find the post. I think it was from Canada Sports Night or whatever it was, that, obviously Bo and Marcus Simeon played together in Toronto, and they were all talking about what Marcus means to Bo Bichette. And he goes, everything. He means a lot to me. And it just goes to show what leadership Marcus Simeon brings to this team. Something that I kind of feel that on the Mets previously has kind of been falsely advertised as what we're seeing. Obviously, we see Lindor on the field and what happens on the field, but Marcus Simeon brings something a little bit different to the table. How he helps kids out. We see him working out already. I think he was with Jet Williams, and I think he was with Brett Beatty.
Brett Beatty,
yeah. So what he helps with Simeon and Bo Bichette, it's just a good start right now. I know a lot of fans were upset throughout the offseason. Heck, I'm pretty sure both of us have gotten upset with things that happened or didn't happen. I'll say this, though. The plan has not really been deviated from. I mean, if you pay close attention to what David Stearns has said, he's kind of stuck to his plan. Mm-hmm. And it was, he wants to get better defensively. He's done that with Simeon. He wants to add offense to the team. He's done that with Bo Bichette. He's come back from the loss of Edwin Diaz with adding Devin Williams, who's a lot younger. And also, he was more of the better closer for a while. I mean, I know we made fun of him because of the home run he gave up to Pete and what happened with him with the Yankees. But for so long, he was one of the top closers in baseball. And let's not discredit Luke Weaver either, because the guy had to pitch in the Bronx. He had to become closer once Clay Holmes couldn't do it anymore. So the Mets are slowly putting this team together. There's still a lot more work to be done. I think it will be done. It's not going to be all done, and it might not be finished by the time we get to spring training. We've seen guys sign into February. There'll be the WBC. I'm pretty sure players are going to wait out that as well. So this team is not a finished product until we get to opening day.
Yeah, to add to some of those acquisitions in this offseason, like something that kind of goes under the radar is like what we see here in the comments, Kai Correa. One thing that David Stearns, I vividly remember when he got hired, he was very cautious of just quick overturn. He didn't want to ruffle any feathers. He kept a lot of pieces, a lot of people that were in the organization. He didn't want to just quickly just change things. He wanted to give folks a chance so he can kind of feel the process out. And I think that gave him, an evaluation year to understand what he was working with. Lo and behold, the evaluation year just, skyrocketed him to 2 games within the World Series, which is interestingly like the funniest thing that could ever happen. But then
probably not what he wanted reality.
In reality, he did it. I don't believe he did. And he took it, obviously. It's house money at that point. And then last year, he's kind of in a weird position. Like he's sitting there saying, you know what, we're 2 games from the World Series. We're going to add Juan Soto. Like there really shouldn't be much insanely crazy additions after that I should make. And that's kind of what we saw, right? And, the year unfolded the way it unfolded, fair. And I think now you're starting to see what he always envisioned for this organization. You got versatility all over the field. And I love what you said, actually, because it's kind of the first time I really heard it the way it was spoken. False advertised leadership with this organization. Couldn't be more true as a bullseye with that, because I just think we were so punch drunk with love towards some of those players that we just assumed that they were someone else behind closed doors, and clearly they were not. Yeah. And we realized that pretty quickly when things would go awry in the season for multiple years, and we would just turn a blind eye to it and just assume, we'll just kind of paper over the cracks and get through. And David Stearns saw it before any of us. He just was professional about it and just like, okay, well, we're going to take things a little slower than we all assumed. And now you're looking at nothing but infielders throughout the infield that have done multiple positions in their careers and leadership. You got like Jorge Polanco. Everyone poo-pooed at the contract when it was signed. Now, I mean, really looking back at it, it's a bargain, but you're not just getting a decent player. You're getting a veteran who's done very well in the postseason, who is a very competent hitter, can hit to all parts of the park. Marcus Semien, it's not just offensive Marcus Semien that everyone is like kind of hung up about. You're getting really good Gold Glove caliber defense, and like you said, great leadership. And then what we got today, we got one of the best pure hitters in the American League to come and play a new position. Not only come and play a new position with us, but told the Philadelphia Phillies, I'd rather go play with the team that didn't make the playoffs. He told the division champs, I don't want to play with you guys. I'll go play with the Mets. That is a coup of a coup, in my honest opinion. And and I'll wrap it up quick. Yesterday was tough. We all took it really hard on the chin, but I was really proud of the Mets yesterday because to me, they were the only competitive offer that was competing with the Dodgers, which seems like a trend with the Mets, competing with the Dodgers, right? And then less than 24 hours later, they go and get the second best player available. Like, I mean, how can anyone criticize this front office anymore? It just drives me nuts. But it has been a roller coaster, to say the least, but I'm glad we're here. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. Like, well, I'm glad we finally made it to a point where we can kind of see the vision.
And it's different. We haven't been through something like this where the Mets have kind of cleaned house on homegrown players that the fans love. I want to say this. I'm assuming that this is something that Chaim Bloom would have done if he would have came here. Was it before Brody Van Wagenen? I think it'd be between him and Brody. Yeah. And Chaim Bloom was gonna clean up. He was going to get rid of DeGrom. He was going to get rid of everybody. And the Wilpons didn't want to do that. Steve wasn't here yet, so they went with Brody Van Wagenen. And I have a feeling that's the same thing that's happening here. And we're actually seeing it in motion. Big thing for David Stearns is we talked about the versatility when it comes to players around the field. I think he also likes to add versatility to these contracts where they're short-term deals. He can opt out and then they're saving money. Then they could put it into somebody else. So there always will be the tires will always be rolling if they see something else that they like. And what's great about the Bo Bichette contract is obviously if he has a great season for us next year, he's going to opt for free agency. And the free agent pool next year isn't great. So the Mets can come back and re-sign him and put all their money in him if they do well and give him a longer term deal if they want to. So they're kind of changing the way things are contractually done, which it's kind of a fresh take. And I like to see that. The Phillies had already agreed with Bo to give him his contract of 7 years, $200 million. So I don't know what Stearns said. It wasn't just Cohen in this. Cohen put the final touches, but Stearns had to have said something that convinced Bo to come here and play. I think also the fact that they did not trade Alec Boehm yet, which was a big deal. You have Trey Turner as well in the infield. I think that had a big thing to do. They said, and Stearns was probably like, look, Brett Beatty's at third, but if you come here, we will give you third. And Brett is as versatile enough, as we've been talking about this whole show so far.
Yep.
He can move to first. He can move to the outfield if we need, or, obviously there could be trade talks at some point about him. But I do kind of like the way that this has kind of panned out for us. Like you meant, like the way it just ended in the last 24 hours. I think this is a positive sign. Who knows if it's going to work out on the field? We will see. But the way that they have conducted business so far, to the way they pivoted, is huge. And this is a big reason why Steve Cohen wanted David Stearns in the first place, and why he is not going to be going anywhere. He's not going to get fired and none of that stuff. I think he's going to be here for the duration of his contract because this is the guy that Steve Cohen wanted this whole time. Now, I want to go over this with you because you talked about bringing in Bichette, Polanco, and Semien. Keith Rad posted a tweet earlier today talking about career numbers with runners in scoring position. Bo Bichette, career 330, Polanco 306, Semien 275. Now you compare that with the guys that left. Alonso 266, Nimmo 286, as well as McNeil 286. Huge drop right there. And then you look at with 2 outs, because we all know the Mets struggled with 2 outs. 310 for Bichette, 298 for Polanco, and Semien 253. You look at Alonso 223 with 2 outs. 258 for Nimmo, and McNeil 273. They just added 3 legitimate offensive threats. We haven't talked about that in a while. We thought we had offensive threats, but when this team would load the bases with no outs and come up empty-handed, and it wasn't just one time, twice, all season long, except for 1 month. When that happens, like these guys could cause, and we haven't even gotten into adding them to a lineup with Lindor and Soto. This is going to cause havoc in ways we have not seen before.
Yep. And I think the best part about it truly is the fact that so many people are they're enamored still in 2025 or 26, excuse me, about the home run ball. And I get it. Chicks dig the home run. But there's so many ways to win a baseball game. And I think the perfect example, this is a copycat league. If folks are not aware of that, then they have to open their eyes. The Toronto Blue Jays did this. This is how the Toronto Blue Jays made their way to the World Series. They weren't just bopping home runs. They were getting clutch hitting. They were hitting with 2 outs. They were hitting with men on base. They were moving guys over the proper way. And now you have a lot of guys with that DNA inside them. And I think this is, I've been trying my best to avoid talking about the guys that have left. But we were so many times me and you have had conversations where it was what was that at bat? Where did we go? Yeah, why?
During David Wright, we were like, what is this?
What are we trying to do? This is it would frustrate me when, anyone I would be at the park with, I'd be like, they're gonna go get some concessions, and I'm like, you're probably gonna miss 2 innings because they're not gonna hit the ball, and they're gonna be on the mound for longer than they are with the offense, and it was just really tiring, and so many people were trying to figure it out. It was. I just think these guys are just trying to hit so many home runs, and it backfired. None of them are home run hitters, and I think the biggest case in point, we've said this on many shows in the past, was Brandon Nimmo. And we know Brandon Nimmo turned into a home run hitter, but he never needed to. And he wanted to make his money. We get it. You hit more home runs, you make more money. He just became a totally different person, very Jekyll and Hyde. And he's always a good player. I won't say a bad word about him, but even like Pete had so many weird moments too. Like Pete has a really interesting spot in my heart where it's like I kind of wish things would have worked out differently. But like, if Pete was just into his home run stat, then I understand why he's not here anymore. McNeil, even at points, we talk about Rick Carson from Mets Weekly. Like, he was at one point a really good slap hitter. That's kind of what he was. And then towards the end of like his tenure as a Met, he was a pull hitter. It was like, what's it was very confusing. So the guys we got here, we got them here to fix that problem.
Yeah. And you know what? They couldn't adapt, right? McNeil couldn't adapt to the new rule changes. That's when everything went downhill for him. Yep. When they moved Francisco Lindor to the leadoff spot at middle of 2024, he changed the whole dynamic of the offense. So you kind of were expecting, can Brandon Nimmo adapt and be that run creator? In the third spot, didn't work out. 4, they didn't work. 5th, they didn't work. It just was not working. And that was a theme with that group of players. And you can go all the way back to you could do 2019 to 2021. Every year, somehow that team had somewhat of a collapse, right? 2019, they had a big run, collapsed at the end of the season, couldn't make it. And Edwin Diaz was not helpful in that whole portion. 2020, I'm not going to count. 2021, remember they led the league until, August? Fell apart in August. 2022, led it until September, fell apart in September. 23, just completely awful. 2024, they had the magical run in the last month of the season thanks to really good pitching from Jose Quintana, Tyler McGill, and Sean Manaea. Like that, those three really help launch them into the postseason. And if it's not for Lindor's big home runs in Toronto and Atlanta, they're not in the postseason because they only won by percentage points. So to see them again collapse in 2025, at that point, that's like 4 or 5 collapses in a 6-year time span. It's time to change things up. You have to. And it sucks to lose a guy like Edwin Diaz, but it's not like they lost Edwin Diaz and they just left it as is, as we've seen in the past, and signed like DJ Carrasco to be the closer. No, Frank Francisco, right? They didn't do that this year. They got probably what is the second best option in reality, if you don't count Robert Suarez and those other guys. He is probably the best option in Devin Williams. And then you kind of got a little sneaky closer in Luke Weaver, who's going to be the setup man, but can close as well, as we round out and talk about versatility when it comes to these players. So it just seems like this team is heading in a interesting direction that could possibly be very fun this season. They're projected to win 85, 86 games, and that's enough to get
that's before Bichette.
Before Bichette too. So a lot of fans could say that, they didn't like the direction of the team, but Fangraphs and all these everyone keeps predicting that this team is a playoff team, and like you said, that's without Bo Bichette.
And doesn't that sound like a typical Met thing where everyone thinks one thing and then the Mets actually perform in the total 180? And I think I've been saying it. I feel like the Mets aren't going to be as bad as what people think. And if you really think about it, I understand the pitching from the Phillies is a level above the Mets, a significant level. But
yeah,
I mean, if you look around the diamond, I mean, the Mets are right there. Like, their best player, Bryce Harper, our best player, Juan Soto. Trey Turner, Lindor. I favor us in both of those categories. We don't have a Kyle Schwarber, sure, but we also don't have a guy who's going to strike out 200 times or no more on the team. And I think we kind of leveled things out and we have options. And now, if the Mets can continue to add and they kind of get to a point where they can give us just one more bat and then we can just focus on the arms, you're talking about 6 professional batters deep before you get into any youthful players or a catcher for that matter. And, who knows what's going to happen with Francisco Alvarez if he just stays healthy. That's also like one of the biggest X factors for the team, because when he came back from his injury, he was actually really good. But like, you could get 6 professional hitters in that lineup kind of flowing, doing multiple things, then that bottom half of that lineup you're not asking for them to move mountains.
Yeah.
And I think that's the goal here.
Yep. And if Francisco Alvarez, a lot of it has been injuries, freak injuries too, on top of that, because he's gotten hit so many times in the hand, but he is their catcher. He was their number 1 overall, on MLB Pipeline. He was the number 1 overall prospect. So there's still hope. He's still 23, 24 years old. The Mets aren't going to give up on him yet. Brett Baty, I don't know yet what they're going to do in terms of if they're going to trade him, but we did get a nice significant boost from him towards the end of the season to see him come into his own. And even though Mark Vientos, who could also be on the trading block, but even though he had a sophomore slump, as I would like to say, he still hit 17, 18 home runs and over 60 RBIs on a team that couldn't score.
Listen, he's the enigma, I think, of the team. And I genuinely think he can hit 30, 35 home runs if he's locked in and he takes a leap. He can hit 15 home runs. The problem with him is that the theme that me and you keep saying is versatility. He doesn't have any. He's that one like oddball that just, I don't know if he's a David Stearns player.
He's your Timo Schwarber right now.
Yes.
There's no position, just put DH.
Yeah, he's a DH that's going to try his best to hit the ball over the fence. And the kid has a lot of moxie to him. I like what I do like about the kid is that, like, when everything's stacked against him, including the fan base, he tends to answer back. That's something I do give him a lot of credit for. Now, is his head on straight all the time? Is he really focused on winning? We don't know. I think he's still growing as a player. I think he's still trying to find himself.
Yeah,
right?
And could also be what was a big microcosm of what was in that clubhouse. Unfocused, a little bit ego-ish because of what happened in 2024. That's a little small microcosm of what probably happened in that clubhouse.
And I mean, you couldn't have been more correct, man. I mean, we joke about it, but the letting everybody know he wanted to be called Swaggy instead of Mark was also like, the chains, the chauffeurs. It was like, okay, all right. And, he does do the fashion shows with Lindor, and he does the whole out in the town thing. And listen, he's a young kid. I get it. I'm not, there's nothing here I'm saying that he shouldn't be doing. I get it. But you kind of see how he carries himself every day at 7:30 on SNY. And you know something, he's just, there is a barrier between him being a competent, true piece to this team, to being what they can be. And then behind that wall, there is the Mark Vientos that we've been kind of used to. And I think the OMG and the guys who were around him had him moving a certain way. And now, with a lot of movement and a lot of shuffling, and I hate to bring this up, but him joining the Boers Corp, things have changed. He is on. Unfortunately, you have to consider almost everybody outside of like the veterans and Francisco Alvarez and probably Torrens on the trade block. You have to consider it. They're blocked, or they're not going to get time where there's guys behind them that can just come up and with their hunger take their spot. So he's a guy, as I mentioned, when the odds are stacked against him, he tends to answer. Now, these are different odds though. This is like odds are, you're not going to be a player in Queens, New York anymore. You're going to go to a team that you may not have the luxury and the glamour and the fan base supporting you the way you have it here. And then it gets a little tough for you, or you kind of like show us in spring training, or you get a second chance in the season to truly be the DH and move forward. that you can turn heads. He is really. He may not even get the chance to do that. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you could say that about him. It's possibly Brett Beatty. I think Master Flip was in the chat talking about him being traded, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Just to wrap up on Bo Bichette, because we went over the Phillies numbers. Guess what we didn't go over? What the Mets gave him. 3 years,
That's right.
126 mil, no deferrals, and opt-outs after years 1 and 2. There's this $5 million opt-out bonus. I'm assuming, is that the same thing they did with Soto?
Yeah, I think Tony Metro went over that. Like, this pretty much, if we just tack it on, that it can void out the opt out, and we pretty much have the player for 2 years.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think that's a great way to structure contracts. He's got full no trade, so that works for him. We talked about his bat, and just I think something that I really like about him. Obviously, he can hit for power. He scores a lot of runs. But the dude hits for batting average, man. Like old school, 311 batting average last season, had an 840 OPS, career-wise, 294 in 6 and 7 years in the league, 806 OPS. We talked about with runners in scoring position 330, 904. Last season, 381 and 1.053 OPS for the entire season. We know what he did in the postseason, in the World Series. 348, had the big home run in Game 7 off of Ohtani, that 3-run home run, had 11 RBIs and a 922 OPS. He rises to the occasion, something that has been lacking from this team. No one seemed to want to grip that outside of, let's be honest, Francisco Lindor in 2024. Soto was a little hesitant last year. I mean, he didn't really come up in big clutch spots. He did have that one good run stretch in, I think it was August, where he was very clutch. But the Mets now have another piece that is not afraid to attack at the plate.
And, I'm looking at some stats because I was talking with friends about Bo Bichette. I actually have quite a few Yankee fans that were really like, they really wanted him because they felt they needed an upgrade over Volpe, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that, the one thing that they were enamored about with Bo Bichette is that, like, he is a great breaking ball hitter. That is, like, the Mets for years have had guys just like waffle at sliders, waffle at curveballs and stuff like that. Like, he is a very good professional hitter because he can hit off speed and he can hit velocity. And another thing too, and this kind of goes with Polanco, this goes with Semien, it's kind of the trend with all three of these guys. They and for Soto, for that matter, they spray the ball to all parts of the field. That to me, that
Arsenal hate that.
Oh, so it's all right. Don't worry. We'll get wins. We'll stack wins on that. But like, that is just gonna level out so much for like a guy like Soto, because everyone thought they're just gonna walk him like 300 times, like all those jokes about that. But you know what? Put him on base. He's a good base runner now. And you got guys who can make contact and put the ball in play all parts of the field. Juan Soto might actually, mess around and score 200 runs. Juan Soto's going to touch home plate a lot more than what people may think if these guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that's a beautiful thing about Bo Bichette. Another really, really interesting thing about Bo Bichette is that, a lot like Lindor, you look at his frame, he's a little guy, but man, can he hit a baseball hard. Mm-hmm. His exit velocity is no joke. And if you look at some of the home runs he hit, I mean, he's not hitting 30 home runs like Lindor, but close to 20, in the Rogers Center, he's putting the ball in the upper deck. And it's just like, man, could you imagine what that's going to look like here at Citi Field? So I'm super excited.
So Jarrell Carroll in the chat saying that the $5 million is a player option similar to Bellinger's previous contract with the Cubs. So
he has the option. So wait, if he opts in, he gets $5 million extra?
I guess so. The contract terms are still a little confusing to me, so I won't pretend like I know the numbers and stuff like that. But there you go.
I think that, if anything, if kind of favor, I mean, he's making 42 now. Mm-hmm. If he opts in, it's $47 million. Yeah. Why are you opting out anyways? I mean, he's actually in a really good position of leverage.
Yeah, absolutely. Emilio the Poet saying we have situational hitters now. Michael Goodwin saying they're putting the pieces together. It just takes time. Shout out to everyone in the chat. We got close to 300 people in the room. Yes, mentioned Ibby in the chat. He just came off of doing Till Mets Do His Part. Master Flip in here. Appreciate you all. Mike as Mets. Chris Torres is in the chat. Appreciate you as well, my friend. Great to see you. Maureen and Jay Diaz as well. Jesus M, Mr. StarQuest. Brad in the chat as well. So I appreciate every single one of you. We're going to get into what led to this whole Bo Bichette deal, because 12 hours prior, the Mets were in the hunt for Kyle Tucker, and it was coming to a close. Obviously, Steve Cohen can't help himself and has to tweet out. It always feels like Steve tweets at the worst times possible. Thankfully, Bo Bichette kind of saved that whole thing for him. But Kyle Tucker eventually, out of nowhere, we knew they were waiting in the wings, but the Los Angeles Dodgers come in and take Kyle Tucker, 4 years, $240. Robert Murray of FanSided with the numbers: $3 million in deferrals, $64 million signing bonus, opt-outs after year 2 and year 3. Compare that to the Mets offer. I can't see, and you mentioned it earlier, I can't see why anyone is upset with what the Mets offered. 4 years, $220, no deferrals. No defer. All that was going to be upfront, no deferrals. He was going to get $60 million the first year, $60 the second, and $50 the final 2 years of the contract. And on top of that, a $75 million signing bonus. What else could they have done?
Yeah, I mean,
he ain't Soto.
Yeah, it's so weird because this is not like, this is probably the minority opinion, but it's one of the best like situations where we got turned down by a player that I was really okay with. Because first of all, I would have took the player. I'm not the biggest fan, and as Ibby know, I've talked about Kyle Tucker almost too much, almost to the point where it's driven me crazy. But Ibby is like my Kyle Tucker savant. He's big on Kyle Tucker, and he can tell, like many folks, I'm not the biggest Tucker guy. But I would have if he would have signed, I would have been like, yeah, he picked us. Let's roll. Yeah. It's awesome. But I wasn't hoping for him to not sign, but I was just like, man, they did everything. Like, you know, there's so many people who complain about all these teams that they don't spend money and they don't do everything they can for these free agents, and the sport is dying and everything like that. Well, guess what? Your team that you root for, they tried their best to go toe-to-toe with the Mets. Yeah, the Mets got used for leverage. We're not ignoring that. But, you know, what if? Just what if? And now players know, like, you know what? You could say we get used for leverage after the fact, but if a player's looking for a contract a la Bo Bichette, and they want to go get paid and they want to play on a team that's going to compete, the Mets are that team. If you look, you know, like I mentioned, the National League East winners were turned down, and everybody in the industry said that they were the favorite for Bo. And it didn't take us less than 24 hours to just say, all right, hey, Bo, we're going to go get you. And that's what they did. So towards Kyle Tucker, listen, Kyle Tucker, he knew he was the belle of the ball this offseason. You know, he understood he had to wait out his process, and he had to go and make his rounds throughout the league, who was interested, who wasn't. And granted, it wasn't the Soto process, but it was somewhat similar in some regards. But the Mets were right there again. So this is one of those instances where that front office should hold their heads up high. And to anyone who thinks that that front office does not have a plan or they don't know how to pivot, it proved everyone wrong today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I wasn't really big on Kyle Tucker. I didn't think he was an option, just like Bo Bichette, until like probably about 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know Ibby in our chat talked about it and wanting Kyle Tucker, you know, throughout the whole offseason. So kudos to Ibby on that one. But I never really thought it was a realistic probability until 2 days ago. Yeah. And as we got closer to the decision and all that stuff, I was like, man, you know, I really feel good about this. And then the Dodgers came in and do what they always do to the Mets and pick them off. Yeah. And then you hear all the things that are coming out. And this is where I bring in Ibby's comment where they talk about blends into the background, because that phrase bothers him. You're getting paid $60 million a year, 60. Now all the stuff that we're hearing about him. And I did bring this up last week because Will Salmon, we talk about Will Salmon and the great work that he does. One piece that I picked apart in one of his initial articles about Kyle Tucker was the fact that he may not want to play in a big city like New York. And I was like, that's kind of a warning sign to me. If he, like, I don't want to hear that at all. Like you either want to play or you don't want to play. And if he wants to be in LA and calm, cool, and collected, and in Toronto where the emphasis is not on him, this is not going to work here for him in New York. And he'll be a player like a Jason Bay who didn't work out in New York. If you're not going to rise to the occasion like a Yoenis Cespedes did when he got traded here, it's just not going to work out. And I, now that I'm seeing all this verbiage come out about the type of player Kyle Tucker is and what he's about, kind of glad that they didn't go even further to try to get him.
Yeah, and I think one thing that Will Salmon has been very consistent on is that the Mets are planning this offseason to practice discipline with every target that they're going after. And I love that. I understand that they are going to go past their means in some situations, which I think they did somewhat with Tucker, but they knew they had to because they were dealing with whoever they were dealing with, Dodgers, Blue Jays, whatnot. But they knew that there was a cap to where they were going to go no matter what, and they did that. So they practiced their discipline. And then to the New York thing, this is like something that I am very passionate about. I think, and this goes to any New Yorker, any New York player, that even the guys uptown, putting on the pinstripes uptown and putting on the blue and orange in Queens, there's so much more than goes to it than just playing baseball. We analyze every single swing, every walk to first base, every pitch thrown, every reaction, whether it be positive or negative. It is analyzed to the T in the city. And it's tough being a player here. That's why guys like Aaron Judge and Francisco Lindor are revered. And Juan Soto now, yes, they are revered because they can handle it. They understand what comes of it. They accept the failures because they're going to fail. There's always rough patches in baseball, and these guys understand what comes with it. But there's so many guys out there, so much talented baseball players, that the second they land in one of our boroughs in this city, us as fans, we see right through it. We see right through it. And I've said this to Ibby, and I mean this from a place of love. He was not even fourth fiddle in Houston at times. Jordan, Altuve, Correa, Bregman, like that established, four was in front of him to face media questions, to face the fans or whatever with the whole cheating stuff. Like, even though he wasn't a part of that stuff, they were always going to be teased and taunted about that sort of stuff. He had a guy around him at all points in time when he was a young player there. You see him go to Chicago, and at the end of his time in Chicago, he was booed by those fans because he couldn't grab them by the scruff of the neck and drag them forward in the postseason. He never was that guy. He's never hit more than 30 home runs. He got paid off WAR. That's what he got paid off, WAR. He got that contract because he's a great WAR player. That's it.
And I think that is the only reason why it was hard for me to let go of Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso, because I know they had their shortcomings and sometimes the seasons didn't end well, but those two guys could play here in New York, right? Pete Alonso did have his moments. He did break records. He was a New York Met. Same with Edwin Diaz, who even to his capabilities was able to turn around probably what was one of the worst seasons that I've ever seen from a closer, and was able to turn that around and make a good career out of himself. Had a couple really good seasons with the Mets. So on that aspect, it was a little hard to let those two go. But yeah, you need guys that want to be here, that want to play here. Bo could have took his contract that he wanted from Philly and, rode off into the sunset. But, he comes here. Obviously, the AAV is a lot higher, but he's up for the challenge. And I think that's very important.
Absolutely. And another thing, too, is that, like, you mentioned it earlier, like, how did we get this done and everything? We don't know if, like, Marcus Semien was a big part of this. His time with him in Toronto, it was documented today, like you mentioned. They were really tight. And Marcus Semien, all you hear about Marcus Semien is the leadership. And, Marcus Semien got traded here, and we don't know the type of player we're going to get with Marcus Semien wearing our jersey. But what we know we're going to get this leadership factor from him, screams like what was needed in a clubhouse that was in dire straits last year because they were losing. They were frustrated with how they were losing. You know, last year, I felt like if everything that could go wrong would go wrong in that regard, and somehow they almost made the playoffs. It didn't make any sense. But best thing that probably happened for this team is that they didn't make the playoffs, because then there would have been like a little bit of more false hope and another, let's give them another chance. And they nipped that in the butt and they did the right thing. And now you have new voices, new, better experienced people around. And what Marcus Simeon's probably doing behind the scenes, I'm pretty sure there was a conversation like, yeah, go get that guy. Give him what he wants. Let's get him in the door. He could play there. We could do this together. We got Francisco Lindor with us up the middle. Let's make it work. And I'm pretty positive Bo Bichette said, yeah, and we're going to do this in New York. Let's roll. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we already know that Bo Bichette.
Moment player too. Big time moment player.
Big time moment player. We've seen him in big moments at Yankee Stadium. He's unfazed by New York.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that this is going to work out well, at least for him. Simeon, it remains to be seen because he's coming back from injury. And, you know, obviously he's a little bit older. He's kind of the elder statesman of the clubhouse. And not to mention him coming in and having to answer so many questions during his open press conference. And he did it unfazed. So that's something that's going to be good for him.
And real quickly, to your point, those questions, anybody who came after him weren't going to get those questions.
No.
He got the hardest hitting questions about Pete, you know, about Nimmo and all this stuff. And, you know, if you watch that whole process, he sat there professional.
Mm-hmm.
He looked into everyone's eyes. He answered everyone's questions as professionally as possible. And he got through it. And we're talking about an interview with a guy making millions of dollars, but you'd be surprised. There's been so many of these guys that couldn't sit in that chair that he sat in that day. That almost gives me optimism moving forward that when they're in Atlanta down 2 runs in the 7th inning, Marcus Simeon is going to be telling these guys, we're not done. We're not done.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. We're not done. Let's go.
Yep. And Jarrell caps it off pretty nicely. Marcus' leadership and work ethic
Absolutely.
will do wonders with these young players on the roster. And we've already seen him this offseason working with Jet Williams, working with Brett Beatty. So he's going to be a nice, fresh face and player in that clubhouse for the New York Mets. Now, what's next? What's next for Steve Cohen and what's next for David Stearns? And let's start off with Cody Bellinger here, because there's been some talk today. Pat Ragazzo of Mets on SI said the Mets are still in play for a free agent, first baseman and outfielder, Cody Bellinger. Now, the versatility obviously makes him intriguing. Here we go. The same word. That's the theme of the show. Versatility. Plays first base, plays center field, plays left field. Last year, he struggled outside of Yankee Stadium, but he has a 929 career OPS at Citi Field. I think that's within 20 games that he's played. Last season, one of the great seasons for him, 272 batting average, 29 homers, 98 RBIs, and an 813 OPS. Year. Now, he wants a 7-year deal. At this moment, the Yankees are only at 5 with him. They're kind of at a stalemate. So can the Mets swoop in here?
I think it's going to be tough because, you know, he wants so many years that AAV is kind of like fluctuating towards what you gave Bo. And you're adding another $40 million AAV if you try to do the short-term thing. You know, he's already said he wants 37 for 7 years, and that's a tough one for Cody. Honestly, I know he has Scott Boras kind of pushing those needles. It would not shock me if there's a team we're not talking about that is the one that gets him. I wouldn't be shocked if like a San Francisco just pops in and just, you know, overnight just shocks everyone or something along those lines. But I'm not saying he's going there, but like for the Mets, specifically for the Mets to get him, if they come anywhere near that 5-year mark, they're probably going to have to find a way to put some opt-outs or something in that language in that contract, because I feel like there's like a 4-year window I'm okay with giving, you know, any free agent that's like 30 or older, like, you know, a contract like 4 years, 5. And I see the vision in it because remember, free agency, you're paying players for their back end of their contract for most of the time, like their past 30. That's what free agency is. You're getting paid for what you've done in the past, honestly. Cody, a little bit up and down in the past, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
he has an MVP season, but he's had some injury seasons, and even one of the seasons in Chicago was a little rough. Well, not in last year. He was sensational. I thought he was an awesome pickup for the Yankees, but can he do that in the blue and orange remains to be seen. So I think the only way this gets done, Anthony, and I'm being totally honest with you, is if Steve Cohen takes, his cojones and says, I don't care about any of this stuff. Go get him. And I think it's possible now with what we saw today with Bo Bichette.
Maybe in the chat saying he wants the coverage in years. This is a guy who's at his last chance, needs the coverage after the rough go he's had. 31 term wins out here. Hard to see the Mets get him want to do that. Michael Jensen said he wants a deal to take him to 40. Bellinger, Drell saying Bellinger will pivot to the Mets. Michael Jensen saying he's going to have to go to a small market team if that's what he wants. Now, if you didn't see the show earlier, right before I came on the air, you did if I speak on the Shea and Sons page, and you got into all the contract particulars. And I think you had when you pulled it up, his average annual value was at 30.
Based off Spot Track, they evaluate him. Spot Track evaluates him as a $30 million player, which is a little bit below what he's asking for. And if he's asking for 7 years at 37, that total is going to be around 260. That's more than what Kyle Tucker got, but in a longer period of time. It's less money in present day value. So you got to recoup some of that money if you cut those years. And if you're cutting those years, you're raising the AAV. So that balance is a little bit. I think it's hard to see it. They're going to have a $50 million. They're going to have a $50 million player, a $40 million player, a $30 million player, and then you're going to add another $40 million. I mean, that would be what everybody thought Steve Cohen was going to do 4 or 5 years ago, right? That would be the culmination of, we got Cohen and we have a checkbook that we can just go into. And it would be so non-David Stearns in terms of financially, but it makes a lot of sense on the baseball field to go get a guy like Cody Bellinger. And it actually rounds out this team very well, because what is the key word of the day, Anthony?
Versatility, man.
Left field, right field, first base. Does it all really well. And you could even, give a Polanco a DH day, have him play first if you want. And guess what? Carson Bench can play in the outfield. He can play with Tyrone. He can play with Soto. You can do so many things if you get Cody that it almost makes you think, you know what? Hard not to say he's worth the money if you're going to do all this, chess on the, Citi Field diamond. It's interesting when you think about it.
And I think he's worth the money if we get the years we want.
Yeah.
Like what we were trying to do with Tucker, like what we did with Bo Bichette. And I think Edge in your chat and I were in agreement. I think it was like around 36 to 38 we thought was probably prime for him. I'm assuming that he wants closer to 40, considering what Tucker got. And I would assume if like we came to him with a contract that's not close to Tucker, he'd be like, what is this? So I find it hard to think that they land him. But, we've seen crazier things from this Mets team where there are some players that we wouldn't even think of that they've come and ended up signing. So, and I'm thinking Polanco as well as Bichette. No one thought that those two were coming at all. So,
and you know what's funny? Like the one joke, the ongoing joke would be, former Yankee.
Oh yes,
might as well. Right?
Yes. To steal another former Yankee, that would be heartbreak for them, because they're having a tougher offseason than we are, and it's not even talked about enough.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that pans out. But there are other outfielders available via free agency. But the list is not great, right? Like you're talking about top names outside of Cody Bellinger, Miguel Andujar, Austin Hayes. We've talked about so many times already. Harrison Bader, a retread. Danny Abriano of SNY talked about the trade route. And I know it was in the chat. Who was it? I think it was Michael Jensen. Give me Duran. And Jaron Duran from Boston. That would be an interesting move if they can do that. Obviously,
you would have to give up a third baseman.
Yeah. No,
Boston needs a third baseman. You have to give up a third baseman.
You want Brett Beatty? You want Mark Vientos? We'll see. You know, obviously Jet Williams is out there. I'm pretty sure he can move positions into the infield. Brandon Donovan, that's another name that's out there from St. Louis. I think Lars Nootbaar as well is another name I've heard of. And I've talked about Ramon Laureano from San Diego. If you want to do a deal with them and get a pitcher on top of that, like a Nick Pivetta, you could figure out, or one of their relievers, you could figure out a way to do that. I don't know. Is there any outfielder that I missed that you guys in the chat, or even Keith, that you're interested in, that you think is a realistic possibility?
I mean, Jaron Duran is a favorite of mine. I think playing for Alex Cora, you know, like you're gonna have to have like a high character, and he's had some character issues, and he's bounced back with them. And I think, you know, playing with Cora can help build a player. And I know he's made some mistakes, and I know a lot of people worry about those mistakes, but I think that's somebody that could come into this organization and do really well. I think with the leadership group that we're putting together, it definitely fits. I'm all with it. I honestly, at this point, it's really, really hard to see anyone past like what we're, you know, with the names with the Andujar, the Hayes, and the other guys that were kind of named, even like the possibilities of putting Brett Beatty in left field. I don't think they go the Beta route. I think that ship kind of sort of sailed with the way things ended, or I guess the non-reunion, for lack of a better terms, right? I'm of the mindset that like Carson Bench, should he perform well and they still put him in AAA, I think that's okay. Yeah. You know, like I'm okay with them taking it a little easy on this young man, because it seems like the fan base is running to think that, you know, day one, he's going to be like a Roman Anthony light or something along those lines. And I think it's a little bit too optimistic, but
you don't mention him the way that David Stearns mentioned him, without him being somewhat close. Like, we're going to see him, I think, at some point this year, whether it's to start the season or not. Obviously, if he has the spring that Pete Alonso had, he's going to be on the opening day roster. But there is a chance that, you know, maybe he's doing okay in spring training, and they kind of do what they did to Mark Vientos when they brought in JD Martinez late. Maybe they get an outfielder later on, closer towards opening day. And that kind of puts Carson Bench on the mend. Here are a couple of names that are being thrown out here. Brian Corey 05 says, does Cleveland still want to trade Stephen Kwan? And then Bobby Saratoga is also mentioning Byron Buxton. What are your thoughts on those two guys?
I've been big on Buxton. I've been super much of an admirer of him. But the thing is about Byron Buxton is that, like, he holds all the cards. You know, he can block any trade. So again, to what we talked about, if he's not big on playing in a big market like New York, you know, I have no time for him. I think he's a fantastic player when healthy, but will it work here? I'm not too sure. I think whatever outfielder they get, if it's a guy like Stephen Kwan, I have a hard time seeing Stephen Kwan as a Met, honestly, because he's going to have to lead off. That moves Lindor to the 2-hole. Like, I don't know if that's possibly what they're planning to do. He's a really good defender, so that's what fits the mold with Stephen Kwan. But, like, Stephen Kwan, I mean, if you look at his real deep metrics, I mean, he's just a singles hitter. He's not really doing anything like major, honestly. You kind of want a corner outfielder, to have some bop to him. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, Buxton would be a dream. I mean, I think they're enamored with Bellinger, honestly. And if they can't get Bellinger, I think they're going to be real creative with it. I can see Brett Beatty making some starts in left. I really can.
Shout out to B. Jules in the chat. I think she's a Blue Jay fan. Goes, congrats to the Mets on acquiring Bo Bichette. I'm going to miss him. He was my favorite Blue Jay, but I wish him the best. I wonder how, maybe you could test this, B. Jules, what the sentiment is out of Toronto, because what I saw from Philadelphia, not too good. And we saw it through your chat as well on your show. Yeah, they're having a tough time with this. So I hope that he is still kind of a fan favorite for the years that he's played in Toronto. And he's, you know, like when he comes back, he gets that, you know, I guess hero's welcome, or you know, that he was the homegrown player and all that. So hopefully for them, you know, they're not too hard on Bo.
Yeah, I think from what I saw on Twitter, like, they're really happy for him, you know, and there was some real like sentiment and emotions towards it. I mean, I think they kind of always knew that was like gonna be tough to bring him back because they were, ever since they signed Okamoto, they kind of knew what they had, and they have a lot of young. That's a cool thing about the Blue Jays. They have a lot of young talent that's on the field, like Ernie Clement and stuff like that. Like they have guys that are gonna do a job for them. So I think it was like 7 or 8 years he was with them along those lines, and he did really well for them. So I think it was I can't even speak right now. It was a joyful time between the both parties. So I mean, it is what it is. I kind of like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that like I kind of get why he was so beloved. He wasn't a superstar, but he was their homegrown guy, and he was probably way better than anyone ever thought he would be. So and plus those moments that he had with them, they ring very, very loudly, especially that home run off Ohtani was insane. So, you got to love him for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Jensen is saying Jesse Winker. I'm going to say that that's probably not going to happen, especially just because Jesse's coming off of what was a crazy back injury, and that is something that I think that David Stearns is going to stay away from. I feel like the time with Jesse Winker is, and I like Jesse Winker. I just think that time is over, somewhat similar to what happened to JD Martinez and Jose Iglesias as well. So I don't think that they go back. That's probably like an emergency break the door just in case. Amazing Dan says Carson Bench is going to be a beast. He's going to have every opportunity to win either the left or center field spot out of spring training, depending on if the Mets sign Bellinger for center field. I absolutely agree with that. Jarrell Carroll saying Luis Robert Jr. That's another name that we didn't mention. Luis Robert Jr., if they bring down the price on him, possibly be traded. We've been talking about him getting traded for so long. I don't know. I don't know if it happens.
I think that's the reason why we've been talking for him getting traded for so long. Is probably the reason why I don't want him now,
Yeah. He kind of, what was that left-handed pitcher that came out of the bullpen every year? I thought we were going to get him, but he never wanted to come here.
Oh, you're talking about the dude with the mustache,
with the long hair and the mustache.
Oh my
Man,
God.
why can't I remember his name? Oh, man.
Oh my God, dude with the mustache. Oh my God.
Andrew Chafin.
Chafin, yes.
Yes, Andrew Chafin.
Yes.
That was the guy that I was like, oh, every year.
Every year. He's gonna go to the Mets. He's gonna be a Met.
Yeah. Well, speaking of pitching, impact starting pitcher, another thing that the Mets need and to take care of it, as Danny Abriano of SNY mentioned, possibility of trading for Freddie Peralta. There's Joe Ryan also available, Nick Pivetta, or signing Framber Valdez. Which direction would you go here? I think I kind of know. I think we're in agreement that probably Freddie Peralta is probably the name to go after here.
Yeah, I think he fits us like a glove. I think he would thrive in New York. I think he has a lot of swagger. I think he would be an instant fan favorite. And there's been rumors that he's been open to an extension. So I think it's
huge.
And it just helps us even more when we're trying to relinquish some of the prospects to go get him. I think he's coming into his own. He was pitching behind Corbin Burns for a few years, and then he became the horse of the staff. So I think that this rings a lot. There's some familiarity with David Stearns and him as well. David Stearns also bringing in guys who he's been familiar with, a la Devin Williams. So I think it's an easier transition. And I think even with Billy Epler over there, he might want to take back some of the prospects that he brought on with the Mets. So I just think it's just an easy fit for everyone all around. I love Joe Ryan. I think Joe Ryan is severely overlooked, underrated. I know he's not like, probably the best pitcher in the American League, but he can pitch like one of the best. So I do enjoy him quite a bit. I don't know if he's going to be made available. There is a name out there that everyone wants to go get, like the big name in Detroit. If there was no Scott Boras involved, I'd be screaming and kicking. Do it.
Yeah, that's the extension.
It's the Scott Boras stuff, man. I'm telling you, that Scott Boras stuff just forgive me, but it brings me a lot of like agita because you're gonna have some headaches. You all year. That's gonna be the discussion. That's gonna be the discussion all year. And I think we could just get a guy, extend them, and move forward into this. What could be a lockout was probably will be a lockout. But we all know that coming out of it, we got a guy to give the ball every 5 days to. I would prefer to be a guy like Freddie.
Yeah. And you just look at the whole fiasco with the arbitration numbers. I mean, look at what was he, like around 30, and Detroit was around like what, 19?
19. Yeah.
So like, I don't know. That situation just seems like a mess that I would rather deal with in free agency than give up big prospects for, especially if he is not going to sign an extension. I want to talk real quickly with you about the Mets international signings, because that happened over the last couple of days. And I think the Mets posted this, but I have the names here of everyone that signed. I'll be honest with you. I don't know most of these guys outside of Wandy Hacienda, which has been talked about for weeks now, because the Mets scooped him right out from the New York Yankees. And he's the number 2 international prospect. A very important tweet that came out probably a little over 5 or 6 hours ago about him. And it was from Wilbur Sanchez at Wilbur Data. Now, I don't know how much this is true or where he comes from, but he said that Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor were key in this signing of Wandy Hacienda. And the 2 superstars of the New York team reached out directly to the prospect, sharing their experience with him and their experience in the organization, and conveying what it truly means to wear the Mets uniform. Now, all the talk about Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto not being able to get along here, and this is what they did to get a kid that's what, 18 and 19?
16.
16. Wow.
16.
So we won't be seeing him until 2040.
Well, that just tells you that everything you read is not the truth. And I think the New York media did a great job of putting this fan base in a hysteria. And I think they did their job. That's their job. And I get it. I mean, you kind of can read through the tea leaves how some of these reporters report on the team. And, you know, there was actually a tweet today from Joel Sherman in kind of like bashing the Mets for signing Bo Bichette or making fun of them. And he was on a weekend. And it's just like so unprofessional, and just like, you know, just tell me how you really feel. It is what it is. So
we never win. We can never win.
It's just, honestly, it is what it is. But the best part kind of is just knowing that these guys care about the health of the organization moving forward. Honestly, it genuinely just, you know, you kind of put a smile on your face. Now, as it goes for Wandy, you hear he might be a better prospect than the guy they got last year in Elian Pena. And Elian Pena was revered. You know, this is kind of what David Stearns is here to do. You know, from top to bottom, he has, you know, his scouts, Chris Getz. He has all these guys in place that can put together a real good foundation and a pipeline from the very, very bottom of our organization to the very top. And we're going to see it this year with a guy like Carson Bench. So for these young 16-year-olds, man, they get an opportunity to go in an organization with, you know, figureheads like Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, telling them that this is the place to go. The Mets are always going to be in a really good spot in that regard. And that's why I think a lot of people give Stearns a hard time, when I think he's doing a lot of things that we don't see. And this is one of them.
And it's finally nice to see that there is some stability when it comes to the farm system that has been missing for such a long time. And, you know, the fact that this team is now, top 5, could be the best farm system in baseball, says a lot. You know, I think Elian Pena is in the top 10 for a lot of the, I guess, prospectus out there. Mm-hmm. And to have this kid now could possibly be better is very interesting. And I think it was, you know, Martian Martin said that CN has an exit velocity of 110 plus miles per hour at 16.
It's insane. It's insane.
Wild.
It's not supposed to be something a 16-year-old should be doing.
No, absolutely not. As we wrap up this show here, a couple of news and happenings. The Mets signed left-handed pitcher Trey McGuff, according to Will Salmon, 27 years old, had a 3.21 ERA in 6 minor league seasons, spent time with the Pirates, the Orioles, and the White Sox organization. He recently came out of retirement. I thought that was kind of on brand for us.
I actually didn't know that.
Recently came out of retirement and posted a 1.98 ERA over.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
In the minors. So he's basically our taxi guy. We'll see him every so often as the Mets send guys up and down when players get hurt. Mets also claim Sung-Chi Chang off of waivers from the Rays from Taiwan.
Said his name better than me.
I hope I said it correctly. Please don't Please don't at me or get upset if I mispronounced his name. Since 2019, he's been a part of the Pittsburgh Pirates organization, but he only appeared in 3 major league games in his career in 2025. So, yeah, that's pretty much it there with what's going on with the Mets. Obviously, I know that you will be live in case anything breaks. Obviously, I will be live. There will be no live show this Sunday at 10 a.m., but if something breaks, we'll come at you at probably around this time at 10 p.m. Keith, I really appreciate you for being a part of this. Man, we have 412 people in the room. The chat was lively. Love it every time we get to do this. And we've talked off the air, but something's going to be coming up soon.
Oh, yeah.
WBC.
I'm excited.
We'll be doing some maybe adding a podcast to Subway to Shea's channel as well as Shea and Sons. We'll get into that a little more as we get closer because I know both of us are huge fans of the WBC.
Yeah, very, very exciting time. I can't wait. It's going to be so awesome. That American team. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Closest thing to the dream team.
Absolutely. I had to go out because the email came out of the merch that came out. So I got my Puerto Rico hat since I didn't have one.
Oh, you got it? Oh, shoot. I got to get mine.
You got go on the website. They're all out there now. They got the only thing they don't have posted is the jerseys yet. So I got a hat. I got a t-shirt for Team Puerto Rico and every team they have out there. So check it out because I remember last time everything was sold out by the time it came and couldn't get anything. So hopefully they'll have some more stuff out there. But plug what you got coming up. Anything else you got going on this week?
Yeah. So I'm partners with the guys over at the ESB podcast, Empire State of Baseball. This Monday, we're doing our Hall of Fame episode where we're going to go over all of the Hall of Fame entry or possible entries into this year's Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, which is actually going to be announced this Tuesday. And we're all rooting for Carlos Beltran, right, Met fans? So we're rooting for that to go down.
Yes.
It's looking very likely that it is going to happen. And, we're going to be talking about the Hall of Fame. This weekend, I will be doing my little fun gaming segment on the Shea and Sons platform. We're going to be playing Out of the Park Baseball. It's funny because in that video game, I actually signed Kyle Tucker. So we'll see what
was your contract?
You don't want to know. Don't want to know because Lord have mercy. And it's funny how I was able to do it, but Lord have mercy. But it was very high number. So I'm excited to get around and playing that this weekend. We're gonna get on that on this Sunday. And if anything breaks, I'll try my best to go live. I'm usually very active on X. If you can find me right here, my name, Kicking It with Keith. And this Monday, ESB podcast. Check us out for the Hall of Fame episode.
And baseball really starts ramping up now. I think we are a little under a month away from pitchers and catchers.
February 11th.
And spring training is just upon us. Like we mentioned, the WBC is coming up. So we're going to have content for you when the WBC comes around because we both love it so much. And it's going to be a fun series. It's different, man. The fans are different. It's a lot.
Passion,
I still remember that game in Miami, the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. That stadium was sold out, having a great time. I wish I was there. That's like one sporting event I wish I went to and which I got to enjoy outside of seeing Edwin Diaz, break his leg. But, it's a fun event. Team USA is now stacked. They got the pitching is stacked. Aaron Judge is leading the charge here. The players want to play in this. And I know there's a lot of people get frustrated with that, but I think this is something this year, especially with all these players committing, I think it's going to turn a lot of the fans, into it a lot.
It'll help the sport greatly. It'll help change the opinion of the competition. This competition shows a different page of the sport because this sport is such a beautiful sport that you get to see sides of the Caribbean. You get to see sides of, Europe that we never get to see. And sure, it's America's game. Yeah, but it doesn't have to always be America's game. It's the world's game too. We can make it into the world's game. There's so much talent. We just signed today. We signed a Brazilian, guys. We literally brought in a Brazilian today, and we're all going Google Gaga over it. Could you imagine if the Brazilians had a team? That'd be so dope for the Bichette family. So it's really exciting. I'm so over the moon for it. I mean, I wish all the Puerto Ricans can go play for Team Puerto Rico. I don't think it's going to be that way, but I'm so locked into Team Venezuela. I think the Team Venezuela is one of the most slept on teams. I'm so excited for them. Obviously, the Japan team, can they repeat? I don't think so. And the Dominican team. I mean, every time the Dominicans get together, it is never no slouch. So the Dominicans are going to come for it. I think the Mexican team is a very much slept on team. I'm very excited to see that. And who knows if one day, the Cuban government can allow their Cuban players to actually play for Cuba, where it doesn't have to be on Cuban soil and they can all get together. That Cuban team would be probably better than a lot of the Caribbean, honestly. So you'd be surprised. There's so much rich talent out there. So I'm super, super excited. It's actually, I believe there is a country that it's their first time going to be in the WBC. I forgot which team.
Is it Czech Republic?
I think it is. I think it is Czech Republic. So they get their first chance of being in the WBC. That alone is super cool. So I'm excited to see. Honestly, you're going to see guys you never even heard of, guys who probably don't even have a career in baseball perform and hit balls against guys who are professionals. And it'll be interesting to see. But truthfully, if I had to be honest with you, that American team is the must-see team.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Team USA is going to be the most watched, hands down. I cannot wait.
It's funny, too, because, Puerto Rico has all these players, but they don't always play.
Yeah.
Somehow that team figures out a way to get past, and they play these teams like the Dominican Republic. They play them so hard. I think they've eliminated them twice.
They've all played the Dominicans.
Yeah,
it's actually that's their final.
Yeah, you'll even see what was it, like the Netherlands? That's a team that came through.
Oh, so much fun!
Yeah, there's so much fun, and I'd like to reach out to Sean Spradling and get him on with us at some point so he could break this whole thing down. I mean, he showed us that they were doing the playing games. What was it, months ago?
Yeah.
Leading to
crazy. I didn't even know they had that.
Yeah. So I was watching that and checking in on that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get into it more as the weeks lead up to the WBC. But you can follow me on Subway to Shea at X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. Follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86. If you like to listen to the show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, please subscribe there. But if you want to be a part of the chat and conversation like you were tonight, lively chat, it's on YouTube. Make sure you check there, like the video, subscribe if you're having a good time, and we will be back for Anthony Rivera. For my good friend Keith from Shea and Sons, this has been the Subway to Shea podcast, and always remember, let's go Mets.